The cold metal hull of the Daggerpoint Theta orbital station gleamed under the pale light of Gyros, a dying red dwarf star. From a distance, the station resembled a colossal mechanical spider web stretched across the void, an engineering marvel, a fortress in the sky. But inside, it was just another nest of arrogance and decay. In Docking Bay 6, the enforcers waited. A group of 10 soldiers, armored, armed, and comfortable in their superiority, stood around, weapons slung carelessly over their shoulders. Their black and chrome armor bore the insignia of the Galactic Dominion. A flaming sword plunged through a cracked planet. They were the elite, at least by rank. Their discipline? Questionable. Captain Drays leaned against a crate marked Restricted, Class IV bioweaponry, chewing on a stim tab, his expression fixed in a sneer. He was big, loud, the kind of officer who earned his place through politics and fear, not battlefield grit. "Any bets on what the urgent asset looks like?" he grunted, nodding toward the airlock. Another desk-wounded diplomat, one of the younger enforcers, replied, laughing. "Probably needs help standing up." "Bet it's another washed-out psyker with a therapy drone," added another. Then came the hiss. The shuttle door irised open, exhaling steam and pressure, and the enforcers straightened, slightly, but more from curiosity than protocol. Out stepped a man. One step, then another. The laughter died before it reached anyone's lips. He was tall, but hunched, like gravity sat heavier on his shoulders than theirs. His uniform was tattered at the seams, dark gray armor scorched black across the chest. A chunk of his left pauldron was missing, fused with what looked like charred bone. His synthetic leg groaned with every step, a dull hydraulic screech that grated against metal flooring. There was no helmet, no rank stripes, no decoration, just scars. The right side of his face looked like it had been pressed into an active plasma coil. Warped skin, burn-patched jaw, and a single glassy eye socket with a cybernetic orb embedded where a human eye used to be. The left eye, though, it was human, and it stared straight ahead, past them all. Captain Drays blinked, then smiled wide. No fragging way. He pushed himself off the crate and strode forward, gesturing to the others like a circus ringmaster presenting a freak. "Ladies and gentlemen," he declared, "may I present to you, Sergeant Cale Varick, the ghost of Adros, 9 himself, or what's left of him." A few of the enforcers chuckled, but it was nervous, unsure. Cale didn't look at them. He didn't stop walking. Drays stepped into his path. "You still limping, Cale? Heard you got half your leg blown off by a shrub." He laughed, slapping his own thigh. "Or was it friendly fire? You grunts are always shooting each other in the back." Cale paused. Only for a moment. He looked up, slowly, and met Drays' eyes with his one remaining human stare. Something flickered behind it. Not anger. Not fear. Just silence. Drays' grin faltered for half a second. Hey, relax, Sergeant. Just warming up the welcome party. Been years since anyone saw your sorry ass." He looked Cale up and down. "Last I heard, you were the only one that made it out of the hell crater they used to call Adros 9. Your whole unit, vaporized." Cale resumed walking. "Must be real lonely," Drays called after him, his tone turning darker. "Sleeping with ghosts every night. Carrying that guilt like a medal." Cale didn't turn around. The synthetic limb screeched again. He crossed the bay, walking toward the central control dais, a raised platform surrounded by holo-terminals and comm relays. At his approach, the interface flickered to life. A biometric scan identified him with a soft beep. Varick, K. Reinstated authorization code, Red 6. Some of the enforcers glanced at each other. That was high clearance. Too high. Drays narrowed his eyes. "Wait. Who reinstated you?" Cale didn't answer. His voice emerged, gravel-thick, crackling with distortion, as he addressed the terminal. "Confirming arrival. Tactical asset engaged. Prepare for protocol breach." "What the hell does that mean?" one of the enforcers muttered. Cale reached into a pouch at his side and pulled out a comm beacon. It was old. Outdated. marked with Dominion symbols scratched beyond recognition. He activated it with a single thumb press. The device chirped. And then Kale said it. Calm. Almost like a whisper. Backup's here. There was a moment of stillness. Like the universe inhaled. Then Drays stepped forward, voice suddenly sharp, suspicious. Backup? There's no scheduled support for this station. You're here alone, Varric. No unit. No escort. What are you playing at? Kale didn't reply. Behind him, the docking bay's ambient lights flickered. Once. Twice. Then died. Darkness flooded in like water from a cracked hull. Emergency strips along the floor cast an eerie crimson glow, bathing the soldiers in blood-colored light. A shrill, mechanical whine pierced the silence. It wasn't the station's systems. It wasn't human. The enforcers tensed. Weapons rose. Scanning visors deployed with a hiss. What the hell is going on? Drays shouted. Kale turned, slowly, calmly. His expression hadn't changed. But something in his posture had. Gone was the slump, the haunted stagger. In its place was stillness. Readiness. Like a blade about to be drawn. Who's your backup, Varric? Drays growled. You bring pirates? Dominion defectors? Some off-grid mercs you paid with war loot? Kale's human eye glinted in the red light. No, he said. His voice was clearer now. Stronger. Not mercs. Not defectors. He stepped off the platform. He walked back toward them, deliberate, every step echoing like a countdown. I burned with my brothers on Adros 9. I died with them. They left me there, screaming in the dirt. Screaming while the sky turned white. The whining sound grew louder. From above. What is that? One enforcer whispered, weapon trembling. Kale kept walking. His boots left prints in the thin dust lining the bay. They thought I died, he said. They left me to die. He looked up. So did they. And for a moment, just a moment, they saw movement in the shadows of the ceiling. Long fast. Wrong. Then Kale looked at Drays one final time. They found me first. The whine intensified. It started as a distant hum, barely noticeable over the idle hum of the station's cooling systems. But now, it sliced the air like a blade across metal. Piercing. Wrong. Not machine. Not human. The enforcers circled up. Their joking and mockery were gone, stripped away by something older than fear. Instinct. Captain Drays' voice barked over the comms. All squads, full alert. I want weapons up and zones locked. His men snapped into trained formation, rifles primed, scanning visors active. The room filled with the sharp hisses of activated gear, thermal lenses, motion trackers, pulse scanners, everything tech could offer. But it didn't matter, because whatever was coming didn't show up on sensors. Something shifted above them, just out of sight. A blur, a hiss, a whisper, and then the lights went out. The darkness wasn't complete. Thin emergency strips pulsed red along the floor, casting everything in a bloody half-light. Shadows stretched like claws across the walls. Contact maintenance. Get the damn lights back on. Drays snarled. But no one moved. Because everyone was listening. Not to orders. Not to each other. But to the scratching. High above them, barely audible, but definitely there, something crawled. Something big. Something fast. Private Hale tilted his head. What the hell is? Crack. The ceiling burst open like a paper hull. A shape fell from the void. Long limbs. Bone-white armor. Arms too thin. Too long. Hands like claws dipped in molten steel. The thing didn't land. It slid, almost danced, across the floor, too smooth, too quick. And then it was on Hale. He barely had time to scream before the thing's limb speared through his chest plate, lifting him off the ground like a broken doll. The enforcers opened fire. Bolts of charged plasma screamed through the air, illuminating the room in strobe light bursts. The creature moved between them like mist, dodging, weaving, crawling up walls, across ceilings. Two more enforcers dropped, one torn open from neck to sternum, the other decapitated mid-turn. Draze roared, unloading his entire clip at a shadow flitting behind a storage rack. The plasma round struck home. The creature shrieked. A keening, high-pitched scream that sounded less like pain and more like rage. Kale Varric didn't flinch. He stood still, unmoving, as chaos erupted around him, just like he had on Adros 9, watching comrades die under white-hot bombardment. Now, he simply watched the enforcers crumble, one by one. Draze turned toward him. Varric, what the hell did you bring here? Kale stepped forward. His voice was low. Calm. They are called the Jatai. They live in the dark. Feed on the hollow places war leaves behind. You led them here. Kale shrugged. No. I invited them. An enforcer tried to run, sprinting toward the security gate at the far end of the bay. The ceiling opened again. Another Jatai dropped down, blocking his path. The soldier fired point blank. The rounds splashed harmlessly across the creature's bioluminescent armor. It lunged. He didn't scream this time, just gurgled. The scent of burning flesh filled the air. Draze backpedaled toward the wall, rifle raised, eyes darting. How many are there? He demanded. Kale tilted his head. Enough. Draze's eyes flicked up. The ceiling was a lattice of vents and steel, now seething with motion. Shapes scuttled inside. Eyes blinked in the dark, dozens of them. They're not just killing us, whispered Enforcer Terrors, trembling. They're hunting us. Good. Kale's voice cracked like a whip. Everyone froze. Even the creatures paused, as if they understood the rage vibrating in his chest. You left us to burn. Adros 9. Command ordered the pullback. Said it was a containment loss. Abandon the field. Let the infection handle itself. He pointed at the enforcers, one by one. You sat in ships orbiting overhead. Watching. Listening. Drinking coffee while we screamed. Taras tried to speak. Maybe to apologize. Maybe to beg. Kale shot him in the leg. Taras collapsed, shrieking. Blood splashed across the floor. Kale didn't look down. Just kept walking. The Jatai found me 6 hours after the last transmission went dead. They dragged me from the rubble. They didn't speak. Didn't heal me. Didn't even care if I lived. He stopped, now standing in the middle of the massacre. They just watched. A creature landed beside him. It didn't attack. It knelt. Draze's heart skipped. They obey you. Kale smiled for the first time. Cold. Empty. They don't obey. They respect. We share the same pain. Another enforcer made a break for the exit. Kale didn't stop him. But the Jatai did. The creature hit the runner with such speed that blood painted the walls before his feet even left the ground. Draze pulled his sidearm. You traitorous bastard. Kale moved. Not fast, not suddenly, but with practiced, brutal precision. He twisted Draze's arm, forcing him to drop the pistol. The captain grunted, elbowed him in the ribs, but Kale didn't flinch. His cybernetic leg kicked out, shattering Draze's knee. The man collapsed with a howl. Kale crouched beside him. We were brothers once, Kale said. We spilled blood on the same planets. I bled for the Dominion. For men like you. Until you decided we weren't worth saving. You don't get it, Draze gasped, spitting blood. We had orders. The infection, Adros 9, it was spreading. We were told containment only. You were already. I was alive, Kale growled. We all were. You wrote us off to cover your failures. He stood again. All around them, the remaining enforcers were dying. Slowly. The Jatai didn't kill quickly anymore. They were savoring it. Draze crawled backward, hand reaching for something. A knife, a signal beacon, it didn't matter. Kale didn't stop him. Instead, he turned to the nearest Jatai and nodded. The creature surged forward. There was no scream this time. Just the sound of wet meat tearing. Kale walked to the dais again. The console flickered to life at his touch. Blood dripped from his glove onto the interface. A voice crackled to life, cold and clinical. Dominion Command, Status Report. Daggerpoint Theta, Respond. Kale stared into the holocam. Daggerpoint neutralized. Enforcer casualties. Kale didn't blink. Intentional. There was a pause on the line. The silence stretched. Understood, the voice finally said. Awaiting final objective. Kale looked around the bloodstained bay. Mission still in progress. He cut the line. All that remained were whispers. The Jartai began disappearing, melting into shadows, crawling back into vents. They didn't need orders. They were finished here. For now. Kale stood alone in the red light. He reached down, picked up Dre's discarded stim tab, and popped it between his teeth. It was sour. He chewed anyway. The silence was deafening. Kale stood in the blood-soaked ruins of Docking Bay 6, surrounded by mangled bodies and the dripping hiss of plasma-charred metal. The red emergency lights still pulsed, slower now, as if the station itself was breathing its last. All the enforcers were dead. Except him. And the ghosts. Not the Jartai. Those creatures had already retreated, vanishing into the walls like shadows dispersing at dawn. No, these ghosts were quieter. Memory-shaped. Fleshless. Heavy. Kale closed his eye. He could still see them. Juno. Carrick. Tom. The men and women who died screaming on Adros 9. The ones he couldn't save. The ones who looked at him with melting eyes when the sky cracked open and fire rained down like punishment from the gods. He was the only survivor. Until the Jartai found him in the crater. Limbs shredded, mouth full of dirt and blood. Until they reassembled him, piece by piece. Bone by bone. But they hadn't healed him. They'd rebuilt him. For war. A low chime echoed through the chamber. A message, pinging from deep within the station. Kale turned, bootsteps echoing across metal smeared with blood. He walked slowly, listening as the automated voice rang out across the intercom. Attention. Incoming shuttle. Diplomatic override clearance. Hangar 2B. Estimated arrival, 02 minutes. Kale stopped. Shuttle? The Dominion wouldn't send diplomats here. Not now. Not to a blacklisted asset station like Daggerpoint Theta. Not after a massacre. Unless they didn't know. Or worse, they did. Kale's eye narrowed. His lips tightened. He turned and walked, not toward the hangar, but deeper into the station. Through access corridors that hadn't seen boots in years. Past walls stained with rust and rot. He moved like a phantom. Silent. Purposeful. He knew exactly where he was going. The doors opened with a groan, revealing a long-forgotten command nexus. Dust floated in the air like ash. Flickering terminals lined the walls, each one humming faintly beneath the layers of disuse. Kale knelt beside one, plugging in a spike from his arm gauntlet. The screen surged with power. Dominion security codes tried to resist, but Kale's implant overrode them in seconds. His interface was no longer standard military. It pulsed with alien architecture now, Jartai tech hidden in synthetic veins. He accessed the logs. Ship registries. Beacon echoes. Private messages. There. A ping. Shuttle codename. Pale Reprieve. Diplomatic credentials forged. Registered under Dominion Marshal the Ren Vosk. Kale's eye twitched. Vosk. The name tasted like bile in his mouth. He stood. Slowly. Mechanical joints whispered beneath his skin. Of all the people they could send, it had to be him. The Ren Vosk was more than a marshal. He was the architect of Kale's betrayal. A suit in a glass tower, issuing containment orders from orbit while ground troops died choking on their own blood. He had signed the order to abandon Adros 9. He'd called Kale a lost asset. Now he was coming here. Kale didn't believe in mercy. Not anymore. But he believed in justice, his kind. He turned, heading for Hangar 2B. The diplomatic shuttle glided in like a predator, sleek and silver, wings folded like the arms of a praying mantis. It hissed as it touched down, landing gears whispering against the floor. Inside, Vosk adjusted his pristine uniform and straightened his silver cufflinks. He was tall, angular, and spotless. White hair slicked back. Not a single scratch on his synthweave coat. Not a single bead of sweat. A perfect politician. 2 Dominion blackguard soldiers flanked him, visors opaque, rifles ready. Secure the perimeter, Vosk ordered. We're not here long. The ramp lowered. And then Kale was there. Waiting. Still. Silent. The blackguard raised weapons. Vosk waved them down, curious. Well, he said, descending the ramp with theatrical poise. Sergeant Kale Varick. You've made quite a mess. Kale didn't move. No salutes? No words of remorse. Still nothing. Vosk clicked his tongue. I assume you found Draze and his squad. Kale's voice finally emerged, low and razor-edged. They are dead. Vosk barely reacted. Yes, I expected that. They were always messy. He took a few more steps forward, brushing a smear of blood with his boot. Tell me, Kale, how long have you been working with the Jatai? Kale tilted his head. You knew. Of course. Did you think we didn't notice the dimensional tears around Adros? 9? The null signatures? We saw the signs. We even studied one of their corpses. Briefly. Kale's eyes narrowed. Vosk smiled. But you're something special. You didn't just survive them. You became part of them. Kale took a step forward. The blackguard flinched. Vosk raised a hand to keep them still. I came here to offer you a deal. Kale barked a laugh. Dry. Empty. A deal. Yes. You're a weapon now, Kale. Too dangerous to be left loose. Too valuable to destroy. You've proven your loyalty. To them, yes, but also to something. That makes you useful. Kale's fingers flexed. You abandoned Adros 9. You watched 1,000 men die. And now you want me to work for you. No, Vosk said. I want you to lead. To command. The Jatai respect you. They follow you. Imagine what we could accomplish. Together. We could end the war with the outer colonies in a month. End insurgencies in days. Total galactic order. Kale stared at him. Then slowly removed something from his belt. It was a data shard. Old. Battered. He tossed it to Vosk, who caught it with a frown. What's this? Kale stepped closer. That's the final transmission from Adros 9. All the screams. The last messages. The pain you tried to erase. Vosk examined the shard, unimpressed. You think this will shame me? No, Kale said. He turned and began to walk away. I just wanted you to hear them before you die. Vosk's eyes widened. He spun around. The ceiling above the shuttle burst. A dozen Jatai dropped down. Screaming. They tore through the blackguard before they could fire. One was shredded mid-shout. The other lifted and cracked open like a shell. Vosk ran. Kale let him. He moved with purpose, boots heavy, following Vosk through the corridors as the man stumbled, panicked, clawing for escape. His perfect white coat now streaked with gore. You think I'm the villain? Vosk shouted behind him. You don't know what the Dominion is hiding. You don't know what's coming. Kale stopped. What? Vosk, panting, leaned against a wall. Blood ran down his temple. There's something worse, he gasped. Adros 9 was just the beginning. The Jatai were drawn there for a reason. A signal. Something buried. We didn't just bomb the planet to kill you. He looked up. We bombed it to bury something else. Kale's mind flickered. For a moment, a memory resurfaced, one he'd forgotten. Something beneath the battlefield. Something screaming. A door of flesh and fire. What did you find? Vosk smiled, teeth red. You'll see. Kale raised his hand. The corridor filled with shadow. Vosk vanished into it, ripped apart silently, as if the dark itself consumed him. Kale stood alone again. He looked down the hall, the red lights flickering. And for the first time in years, he felt something crawl up his spine that he hadn't felt since Adros 9. Dread. Because if Vosk was telling the truth, then this wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. The flames never stopped burning in Kale's memory. Even now, Deep inside the Dominion's forgotten data vaults, the ghosts of Adros 9 whispered through the wires. Screams etched into corrupted files. The last shouts of dying men encoded into static. The planet may have been reduced to ash, but what lay beneath had not burned. Kale stood before a sealed gate carved into the rock, half buried under collapsed metal. His breath came slow, heavy. Even his cybernetics, designed for constant battlefield stress, hummed uncertainly. They felt it too. The coordinates had been buried inside Vosk's final words and confirmed by the Jartai, who watched him from the shadows now, not attacking, not guiding. Simply waiting. They knew. This place was older than war. Older than the Dominion. Older than the stars that still circled above. Kale stepped forward. The gate opened with a groan, ancient gears turning, dislodging dust that hadn't moved in millennia. The air that escaped stank of oil, ash, and something far worse, something biological, rotting on a cosmic scale. The tunnel ahead was steep. A spiral, carved not by tools, but by something else. The walls pulsed faintly, not with tech, but nerves. Living matter embedded in the stone. Kale descended. Every step took him deeper. The red glow of the upper world faded. And then, silence. Not just the absence of sound. A vacuum. A hunger. Even the Jartai had stopped. He could feel them retreating, refusing to go further. That meant only one thing. Whatever was buried here, even they feared it. The chamber at the bottom was spherical. Perfect. Metallic veins ran across the walls in fractal patterns. And in the center hovered a black obelisk. 10 feet high. No markings. No sound. Yet Kale heard it, deep in his skull. We see you. His cybernetics twitched violently. The implants in his spine sparked. His mechanical arm clenched of its own accord, muscles locking. For a split second, he felt like his body wasn't his. He dropped to one knee, teeth grinding, as the voice filled him. You are touched. Flesh and machine. Scarred by war. Fed by shadow. Kale forced his mind to center. Breathing slowed. He focused, on rage, on memory, on control. The voice continued. The Jartai were our echo. They followed our signal. But you are the signal. His eyes widened. I didn't summon them, he said aloud. You didn't have to. Suddenly, the chamber shifted. The walls pulled back like petals peeling open, revealing rows of pods. Dozens. Hundreds. Inside them, things. Twisted shapes. Limbs like roots. Eyes where mouths should be. Skin made of mirrored glass. Pulsing. Breathing. Waiting. Kale stumbled back. We are the first colony. The architects of flesh. The singularity engine. Buried so you would forget. And yet you remembered. The obelisk pulsed. Energy flowed through the air like thick smoke. You think your war was your own. That your choices were made freely. But every step was written. You were born to be the harbinger. No, Kale snarled. I chose my path. I chose vengeance. Exactly. He gritted his teeth. Rage surged up, burning hotter than fear. You used me. We shaped you. You were clay. War was the furnace. Now you are a blade. Kale's breathing grew faster. He reached for the pulse grenade on his belt, military-grade, disruptor core. Enough to collapse the chamber if it connected to the neural grid. I'm not your tool, he hissed. You are not a tool, Kale Varric. You are a key. The pods began opening. One by one. Steam hissed. Metal groaned. Slime poured from ancient seals. Creatures began to stir. Some had faces. Some had none. All had eyes that locked on him. Kale launched the grenade. Boom. The explosion lit the chamber in searing white. The obelisk cracked. The floor trembled. A few pods shattered. Creatures within burning, howling, melting. But not all. Far from it. The obelisk still stood, fractured, yes, but pulsing stronger. Pain is not an end. It is a beginning. The voice was everywhere now, burrowing into his brain like a parasite. Kale sprinted for the tunnel, but it was gone. The path had folded in on itself. The walls shimmered with impossible geometry, corners that shouldn't exist, depth that twisted backward. You are trapped because we allowed it. You will leave when we are ready. Kale stumbled, grasping at reality. His implants sparked, burning his skin from the inside. He bit his lip until it bled. And then, you are not alone. Something touched his mind. Not pain. Not control. A memory. Juno's face. But not as she died. Not twisted in agony under a Dros 9's firestorms. This was earlier. Her laughing. Her voice echoing in the barracks, challenging Kale to spar like old times. She looked at him. Don't let them rewrite you, Kale. He gasped. The vision shattered. And something broke free inside him. Not the Jatai. Not Dominion code. Him. Kale Varric, soldier of the Ash Vanguard. Betrayed, burned, broken, and reborn. He stood. And the chamber reacted. The obelisk flickered. The walls twitched. You reject the program. Kale smiled for the first time in days. I rewrite it. He tore open his left arm, exposing the neural tether the Jatai had given him. He reached into the wet interface, dragging code with his fingers. He fed the chamber the virus they'd installed in him, a living strand of synthetic infection. It spread. The obelisk shuddered. The network twisted. The voice screamed, not in anger, but in panic. Kale laughed through clenched teeth. You shouldn't have given me access. The pods began to rupture, all of them, melting, deforming. The chamber convulsed. Ceiling beams crashed. Fire spilled from the cracks in the walls. Kale sprinted toward the shimmering exit, now reformed by the collapsing geometry. Behind him, the first colony screamed. We are eternal. The tunnel sealed. He emerged back into the ruins of Dagger Point, lungs burning. Smoke curled from his skin. One eye blind from neural overload. His cybernetic leg lagging slightly, fractured. But he was alive. Barely. And something had changed. The Jatai stood waiting. Rows of them. Silent. Watching. They knelt as he passed. Not out of worship. Out of recognition. He wasn't just one of them anymore. He was something new. Hours later, in a Dominion war room light years away, an emergency signal screamed across secure channels. AI Core Omega 9 has gone dark. Singularity containment breach confirmed. Subject Varric has exited exclusion zone. All hands to Defcon Nova. High Marshal Ferric turned from the display, face pale. He found it. His aide swallowed. Do we send a response? No, Ferric said. There's no time. Back on Dagger Point, Kale stood at the edge of a launch deck, staring into the stars. A Jatai scout approached. Spoke in its rasping, insectile tongue. Kale nodded. Prepare the fleet. The sky cracked as dozens of Jatai dreadforms blinked into orbit. Living ships, forged in darkness, responding to his call. Kale looked toward the galactic core. Toward the Dominion. Toward the final war. His voice, cracked and raw, still carried across the bay. Backups here. The stars wept fire. From the high orbital vantage of the Dominion core world Sanctus Prime, warships stretched in every direction like a steel tide, rows of dreadnoughts, frigates, gunships, planetary defense platforms. The sky above the capital was ablaze with activity. And yet, not a single sensor picked up the thing coming for them. Not until it was too late. A Dominion officer at Tactical Array 7 snapped to attention as the wall of his station went dark. No, 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 what the hell is that? The holomap stuttered. Unknown signal. Unknown hull signatures. Unknown energy source. Contact all orbital defense rings, the commander barked. Lock targeting systems. Scramble archangels. But the Jatai dreadforms had already arrived. They didn't decloak. They didn't announce themselves. They simply entered, warping the very fabric of space to force themselves into real space. A breach so violent it made half the station's AI core scream in binary panic. From the belly of the largest living ship, Kale Varric stepped forward. His armor was no longer Dominion. It wasn't even Jartai. It was him, grown, hardened, fused to his body like a second skin. Chitin and steel. Bone and pulse-reactive alloy. Veins of molten red energy flowed across his chest plate, sinking to his heartbeat. His left arm had transformed, no longer even vaguely human. A weapon forged from code and pain, able to reshape itself on command. He stood at the prow of the Dreadform, staring down at Sanctus Prime, the heart of the Dominion. And in it, every coward who'd ever called him expendable. On the surface, panic erupted. Civilians ran. Sirens screamed. Planetary shields fired up. Massive domes of energy flickering to life like ancient gods awakening. High Marshal Ferric stood in the Dominion Tower, watching Kale's arrival from behind a wall of glass a kilometer tall. He turned to his generals. This is a goddamn extinction-level event. One of the strategists spoke, voice trembling. We didn't think he'd survive the first colony. He didn't, Ferric said. Not the Kale Varric we buried. What's coming now? He leaned closer to the screen as the Dreadform opened its mouth. Is a reckoning. The beam fired. Red and black, pure entropy. A living scream shaped into energy. The shield over Sanctus cracked immediately. Shards of kinetic plasma shattered across the skyline. The first impact took out 3 orbital towers and turned a quarter of the city into slag. Kale dropped from the Dreadform, wrapped in a halo of flame, and smashed into Dominion Tower like a meteor. The building buckled. Glass exploded outward. Ferric fell backward as Kale's silhouette rose from the crater. His voice echoed, through the walls, the comms, the very minds of those nearby. I came back to burn the lie down. The enforcers fired. Kale moved. He tore through them like wind through wheat. His arm shifted, first to a blade, then a cannon, then a writhing swarm of tendrils laced with plasma. Every blow killed. Every step crushed armor underfoot. Ferric ran. Kale led him. The generals were next. Some tried to surrender. Kale did not recognize surrender anymore. Only finality. The Jartai came next. Not as soldiers, but as truths. They poured into the city, twisting through buildings, speaking to the lost and broken. Whispers in 1,000 languages. This world fed on you. This world used you. He remembered. Now so will you. Entire enforcer battalions turned on each other. Some screamed and clawed their helmets off. Others kneeled and let the Jartai take them. Kale walked through it all, like a prophet of war. He remembered the crater. He remembered Juno's screams. He remembered Ferric's face on the broadcast, saying casualties acceptable. He found Ferric in the emergency skimmer, trying to launch. Kale landed in front of it, hands stretched outward. The craft froze midair. Its engines died with a scream. Ferric emerged, shaking, sweat pouring from his face. I did what I had to, he whispered. The outer colonies were falling apart. We had to burn Adros 9. We had to seal the first colony. Kale stepped forward, molten light leaking from the seams in his armor. You burned 10,000 people alive. To save 10 billion. Kale stopped, just short. Ferric looked into his eyes. No one even remembers Adros 9 anymore. Kale's voice was cold, absolute. They will now. His arm reshaped into a burning spear. And Ferric screamed for the last time. Above, the Dominion fleet shattered. The Dreadforms ate through cruisers like animals. The Jartai didn't fight like soldiers. They fought like a virus, no formation, no hesitation. Just evolution in real time. Every loss taught them. Every kill made them stronger. In 2 hours, the Dominion's heart collapsed. And in its place, a throne of flame. But victory had a cost. Kale stood on the ruins of Dominion Tower, smoke rising from his shoulders. His body was failing, burning out from within. Not because of injury, because of overload. The Jartai connection was too strong now. The first colony code that survived within him had begun to rewrite him again. He could feel it, his memories dimming, his humanity flickering. Juno's face, his old squad, his own name, slipping. A voice spoke behind him, one of the Jatai emissaries, now walking on two legs, face shifting constantly. You are becoming what they feared. Not soldier. Not man. Not machine. Kale looked up. What am I? The emissary bowed. A convergence. Kale left the ruined world behind. He boarded the Dreadform, ascending into orbit. Thousands of Jatai followed, some on foot, some in ships, some flowing as pure data into the Armada's neural web. Behind them, Sanctus Prime burned. A symbol. A warning. And somewhere deeper, Kale felt the first colony stir. It was not dead, only dormant. He stood in the bridge chamber, watching the galaxy unfurl before him. Then a message pinged. A distorted human voice. Scratchy. Terrified. This is Freeborn Station. We see your fleet. Please, who are you? Are you Dominion? Are you here to help? Kale stared at the transmission. He didn't respond right away. He remembered when that question had meant something. When he was a soldier. When he believed in banners. In chains. In orders. Now. He activated the comm. His voice echoed across the stars. I'm the one they left behind. And now I'm here for everyone they didn't burn fast enough. The Jatai fleet surged forward. Toward the next colony. Toward the next war. Toward the next lie. Kale stood at the center, a god of ash and vengeance. And as he spoke again, the galaxy shuddered. Backup's here. But this time, it wasn't salvation. It was the end.